It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. We have with us Samuel Isaacson, who is founder and CEO of TIKOVA and oversees TIKOVA's investment strategy with risk management and operations. With a sharp focus on building sustainable growth, Samuel is known for his, strategic vision, deep market insights, and disciplined approach to risk management. His leadership ensures that TIKOVA is well positioned to navigate complex investment landscapes while delivering value across diverse portfolios. He has over 20 years of experience. Samuel has held senior roles in prestigious firms, including serving as president of Walker and Dunlop Investment Partners, where he managed over $1 billion in investments. He was also senior vice president of acquisitions of Lim Capital, overseeing more than 20 million in investments. His finance career began at Wells Fargo Securities and their financial institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I will turn the time over to Samuel. And again, I would ask for everybody to make sure the devices are on mute during his presentation. And following his presentation, we will open up for Q&A. Samuel, welcome.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to the presentation this morning. One thing I'll add just before I share my screen, when I founded TIKOVA means healing or improving communities in a combination of Hebrew and Slavic, and it's one of the things that is kind of the foundation of our firm. Obviously, we have to make returns for our investors, and we are fiduciaries to our investors, but we are also fiduciaries to the communities that we're investing in, is the way that we look at our investments. And so first and foremost, our first lens is always, all right, what are we bringing to the communities? And hopefully the communities also agree that what we're bringing is something that's positive and impactful for the future generations. With that, I'm going to share my screen. So this is, I'm going to kind of two different things I wanted to cover first here. So the project that we're proposing at the Dulles or adjacent to the Dulles Airport is in, I don't want anybody to get hung up on the name, but we're calling it for the moment the James Monroe Development Complex. I will touch on why in further into the presentation. But before I get into the project itself, I wanted to just touch on our attraction business, which is called Star of the Sky. The vision is, if you look at across the U.S., generally taking a step back for a moment, a lot of markets in the U.S., a lot of cities, a lot of metros are struggling with what do we do to attract people. A lot of families, a lot of communities complain constantly about there's nothing to do, there's no activity. The malls, the big malls across the nation with the Amazon effect have been, hollowed out and have been declining for many, many years. I mean, there are obviously exceptions across the country. But that kind of anchor for attraction and entertainment and community interaction has been lost with the malls, and there hasn't been anything at scale that's really been replacing it. So our broader vision with our Star of the Sky attraction business is a entirely different type of community anchor that's focused purely on attraction versus having attractions as an afterthought, where you add a bowling alley or you add this or that thing that's kind of on the fringe, but really going to communities and saying, hey, like the anchor for the community and for the urban development design needs to be, what is the attraction that the city is built around, if you will. So I'm going to touch on that for a little bit, and then we'll jump into the project. Sorry, getting used to Canva, so apologies. So just on this, so really again on the Star of the Sky attraction business that we've launched, it moves from becoming historically a lot of the attractions were really more accessories, or you go to a specific destination, and we're flipping that on its head, going, okay, like the attractions need to be the at the core of the urban development in kind of metropolitan city centers where you have a lot of people, and they really kind of reshape the journey for people that live in the city, tourists, and really drive kind of repeat visitation. And that's really kind of the broader vision with our attraction strategy. It's again from going from, okay, we have a Dave and Buster's and we have another place, we have a go-karting alley or a go-karting place, to, okay, we're going to bring a bunch of entertainment options into one venue, one integrated into the urban core. And, we try to kind of give a little bit of a visual at the bottom of the slide here, just showing, the city kind of built around the attraction hub of the community. A little bit more on this is just kind of a little bit more illustration around the different, kind of what we're envisioning. And then we have a number of these projects in the pipeline across the US. And, some of them are smaller, like in the upper left, where you have, just a particular kind of iconic building that's in the city center, versus the other three photos here really show more of what we're calling an entertainment city. So we've spent a lot of capital and investment on the glass kind of roof structure that we're showing here visually, where you essentially build, it's like a mall structure in a way, but very different on the inside. The inside is purely focused on attractions and with all of the data and research around just human, like our own kind of makeup as humans. I mean, the importance of lighting, green, water, really bringing in these natural elements into the attraction, into these structures is extremely, extremely important. And I'll touch on the next slide some more, but you can get a little bit of a sense. So our attractions are not just it's 50% doing entertainment. So maybe it's go-karting, maybe it's bowling, it's VR, it's drone racing, it's all of the kind of cutting edge immersive technology in terms of fun and enjoyment. And then at the same time, there's a content component that is another 50% of the attraction. So that's the kind of mix overall the way we kind of look at the overall attraction business. And not content very different from like a Disney content. Disney's content is very much based on fictional characters. Our content is going to be 100% grounded in history in the particular markets that we're building in. So, I'll come back to that point as to why we're talking about James Monroe for this project in the Dulles airport. But the content is grounded in history and grounded in the local community. And that's by design to give people a sense of attachment, ownership of that story. And when then people can go to different markets and they're not seeing the same type of attraction. It's a very different attraction in different markets and different locations because it's a different story, a different community. And to just, again, like the Star of the Sky attraction strategy, it's all indoor, iconic architecture. It's supposed to be a sense of awe kind of by the time, at arrival. And then there's a fully kind of immersive story-driven platform, as well as the doing part of the entertainment. Real estate anchored, permanent, designed for repeat visits, longer stays, tourism. It's not a family entertainment center. It's not, a venue dependent on content. It's not temporary. It's meant to be iconic, permanent, and really becomes much more of a destination for a lot of tourism and outside visitation. And just, this, wanted to put this slide in here just to give everybody a sense of the amount of demand for experiential real estate and attraction in the U.S. is it's unbelievable in terms of just the growth that's projected. I mean, we're just showing over the next 5 years here, but some of the cities around the world, to the extent any of you have traveled, to China or to the Middle East, and you see, particularly in the Middle East, what Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Riyadh, now are doing in terms of the investment in entertainment attraction. I mean, it is completely transformative to these markets. I mean, if in 1975, if people talked about what Dubai was going to look like today, we probably all would have laughed, but they have built a metropolitan that is unbelievable in terms of the amount of attraction and entertainment and vibrancy that's in that market. So moving now to this particular project. So the location of this is at the entrance to the Dulles Airport. So as you're coming into the Dulles Airport, there's, to your right-hand side, where all the parking structures and the current Marriott Hotel, there's 437 acres of land there. What we're proposing is putting that entire land under one big, massive glass roof structure that becomes a fully mixed-use city, attraction city. So it includes entertainment, convention, hospitality, becomes a fully economic, cultural hub for the DC region, and a I don't know if anybody's familiar with the term, but it's kind of like an aerotropolis is what we're envisioning. So you really bring a true kind of economic center to the airport. The airport, brings in a lot of the traffic, and then you have right there adjacent, you have, this full kind of mixed use development city. And one thing I will add, we never submitted, for the RFP for the airport, kind of re-envisioning. It's something that we have a lot of ideas on and would like to get involved with, but this is kind of more of our core project that we are focused on. We look at the DC market and we say, and Dulles Airport in particular. I mean, we are the capital of the world, whether we like it or not, but that still is the reality for the United States. And to me, as an American growing up in this country, when I see what's happening around the world, I look at the Dulles project and say, this is an opportunity for us to build something where the rest of the world can go like, wow, like the Americans still know how to build things better than anybody else. We still know how to do something that's incredibly powerful, that stands for a lot of our history, our vision for the world, our democratic, values and everything, despite all of the noise that we all are subjected to in this current environment, with all the political, back and forth that happens. I think at the core of us as Americans, we all fundamentally believe in a lot of our founding fathers' kind of principles and values. And that's going to be a lot of the content in this particular development. We picked up on James Monroe. There's obviously a number of presidents that came from Virginia. The whole content component of this project is going to be around the history of the U.S., the founding fathers, what they stood for. Obviously, as we all know, there's a lot of negative pieces as well with slavery and different things. But I think that it's important for us as Americans to remember the things that are good that they stood for, that have brought us to the position and time that we are today. As Americans, we are still the greatest nation in history in terms of what we've built as a nation, despite our challenges, despite our difficulties that we see every day on the news. And I think that that's an important piece for us as Americans to remember. And this is something that we want to integrate as content throughout this, this entire development project. Scott talked enough about my background. I'll skip this one. But, again, like a little bit more on just what we're envisioning here. You can see like this is meant to be a city within a city. So it's it's, a little bit more like not all of our attractions are going to have convention components, but when we looked at the DC market and looked at this particular piece of land and said, okay, like for sure an attraction makes sense here because you have an enormous amount of international visitors that are coming through the Dulles airport, and there's nothing to do when they land in the US. So that was number one. And then when we looked at the broader US, the broader DC market, I mean, there are conventions, there's plenty of convention space, but not at scale. And there's no reason why the DC market should not be competing for the global conventions like, Vegas and Orlando, Chicago. A lot of those conventions now are going international, to some of the bigger convention centers abroad. And so we're looking at this going, there's the land, we have the capabilities. You have the Dulles Airport that has an incredible amount of capacity to drive a lot more traffic. So you start bringing these big conventions at scale with that capacity, and it really drives true vibrancy to this market. So just a little bit more in detail on kind of what we're envisioning. Kind of hand in hand, the top two. So the whole immersive entertainment is going to be a big component of the project. That'll, we look at, Vegas brings, entertainment in a different way to people. And that's why a lot of conventions are held there. We have a very different type of entertainment. So it's indoor go-karting, and this is not go-karting like maybe some of you have experienced with your kids or as when you were younger, going to an industrial building and driving around a bumper car track. This is now very high tech. Think of like, for those of you who know this, it's like a gamified Super Mario karting experience. I mean, you pick up weapons, defenses. It's very, very engaging. And so we would build the world's longest track, something like a 4-mile long track that's multi-layered, multi kind of dimensional. And then around that, you have all of the different types of kind of entertainment that is kind of cutting edge and the highest demand right now. Bowling is an old sport, but that continues to be pretty strong, and continues to kind of stand the test of time. But then there's a lot of newer things where it's VR, drone racing. There's a lot of different types of immersive experiences that we'll build throughout the entertainment side of this development. The convention center piece, we're envisioning over a 4 million square foot convention space, a history center, experiential history center, an innovation center, which really gets into the history and the storytelling around the presidents and kind of the values. Family dining and brewery is going to be important. We're envisioning 7,500 hotel rooms. The rental car and transportation hub, that's something that we're going to have in discussions with the airport, because in our mind, that is, in an ideal world, the train system in the airport gets extended so you can move the rental car and transportation, like parking, to the other side of the airport and kind of free up some of the entrance, and other than maybe just more of your premier parking. But then obviously the last thing is kind of gift shops, food courts. And the one thing that let me see if I have it on the next slide, but we haven't, no. So the one thing that I want to talk on that we have specifically left out of the slide deck. So we see this a little bit more in terms of, there's a little bit more that we want to do here. I want to be careful on how much I disclose, but if you see the train system here, this is not a high power train system. This is a train system that is new technology, doesn't exist yet. The technology exists, but it hasn't been implemented. But it can move people around there's no emissions and there's no power. So there's no and like the train will go up and down. Sometimes it'll be at the ground level. We've shown it elevated here because part of our vision here is where we would like, on top of the buildings that are within the glass roof structure, we have a whole design system, which is not really visually shown here, but the whole part of our vision is to build a golf course that's purely for presidential and kind of like dignitary experiences that becomes part of the attraction. So it has to be set up the right way from a security standpoint, which we have a lot of detail in the background on. But part of our idea is to build in so that dignitaries, they fly into the Dulles Airport. This becomes another component of the entertainment, is where the presidents will actually meet people out here, and they can have like a full experience. And then there's a way for even the consumer or the people that are in the attraction or in the entertainment, they can maybe take the train around. They'll be able to see some of the presidents, some of the higher level officials at a distance through kind of bulletproof glass, but it becomes a little bit part of the attraction. It's like, oh, the president's here meeting, President Trump's here meeting with, whoever, and out golfing, but it's all indoor golfing. It's not out, it's on top of the building structures, because a lot of the structures won't be that high, and there's still the roof structure is on top of that. That brings this whole thing under one big roof structure. We show the location. Everybody knows the Dulles Airport. But this is, again, like right at the entrance to the airport, and part of the whole activation of that land would be bringing that lake under roof. So you now have this nice indoor kind of water element. We would envision putting a lot of the hotels around the lake and having a lot of activation there. This is a rough site plan. This is not anywhere close to kind of where it's going to end up, but we had kind of put together just a rough idea just to give from starting the dialogue component. And the one thing here, we're still showing the parking kind of facilities here. This is again, like, our vision is to kind of move that to a different part of the airport. In an ideal world, this whole entrance where it says parking, this would really be the history and kind of the really focused on the storytelling part of this entire development. So, we, in our minds, thinking of like some sort of big, statue of the presidents, and, if Trump wants to be there as well, that's fine. But I think it's, particularly kind of commemorating the historical presidents from Virginia and what they stood for and their foundations is something that we felt would be really, really attractive, especially for a lot of the, international visitors to the U.S. and tourists that don't know a lot about the American history, but are super fascinated with a lot of what we stand for. A little bit more on just kind of the interior experience, just to give you a little bit of a kind of visual flavor of some of the inspiration that we have on what this could look like. We have a lot more that we've done in the background, but just to give you a sense. And this is the statue I mentioned on the last slide. But a ton of hospitality that will range in terms of levels, from very, very, very high end, kind of, competitive with the highest end hotels in the world, to more of kind of the middle range, Marriott or Hilton kind of product, if you will. And just, I wanted to kind of finish up again, kind of just kind of reinforcing the way we think about, and this doesn't just apply to the attraction, it applies to the entire development, but the way we think about these types of projects is there should be an anticipation and a kind of an arrival kind of sense of awe when people show up. Like this, the architecture, the design in and of itself should be something that really brings people and draws people in. And then, like, everything in the project, in terms of the building materials, the lighting, the sound, the smells, the humidity. Everything is is very specific and has a particular intention. I mean, look, we are nearly 70% water, and as humans, we are influenced by our environment. And that's just, that's just a fact. And so the moment people enter the building, they should start to feel a sense of ease and like excitement. And that's a huge part of kind of the design piece of this. And then there's the full kind of exploration experience, the doing part, the walking around, the like jumping into the different attractions. And you can see here, this is a little bit of the a flavor, so you can get a little bit of a sense for the go-karting experience. It's a very, very different experience than what you've ever seen. And then, the whole immersions part of this, which is, the VR cinema and escape rooms, immersive roller coasters. It's meant to, and a lot of this, the content on a lot of these immersions is going to be tied to the content that you'll be able to physically see in the History and Innovation Center as well. So everything here is by design. People should leave having experienced a very fun historical lesson, and learned a lot about America and our history and everything, but also in a very kind of fun and exciting way. And then the last part is just, the relaxation. So there's, there has to be hospitality and dining. Not everybody's going to go there for thrills. Some people are going to go there just to relax and unwind and have a drink and kind of, be an observer of the activities. And this is, in general across all of our projects. And this, just to give you a little bit of a sense, these are this will be the largest project we do in the US. But we have projects and specifically have identified markets all around the US where we're targeting to do not this size, but similar types of attractions. A little bit on our team, just to give you a sense for some of the parties involved, generally speaking. But we have the best of the best, and certainly there's a lot of names missing from here but the best of the best in terms of just the go-karting design, the architecture. BRC is a legend in doing a lot of attraction and content design work, marketable identity, if you will. They did a lot of work with Disney and Universal, and now they're helping Great Wolf Lodge kind of reimagine their entire existence, if you will, and their entire offering. That's the presentation. One thing I'll add at the end. So our partners for this particular project, we have a partnership with investors from Abu Dhabi. We have 85 billion committed towards this project, depending on how big of a scale it ends up kind of getting, and if it also includes work on the airport itself. So we've got the capital ready to go. We're just continuing to kind of provide more insight to different stakeholders on kind of what our vision is before we take the next steps. But just wanted to kind of make that point at the end here. I'll stop my sharing, but happy to answer questions.
Right, Samuel, thank you very much for the presentation. That's a very ambitious project. I'm just out of curiosity, have you had opportunities at this point to talk to MWA?
We've talked to MWA a couple times. We are still working on having conversations with senior officials at MWA. So we've talked to the real estate team a number of times. We've had some preliminary conversations with Richard. We have not talked to Jack Potter, but we are looking to having more dialogue there soon.
One thing that comes to mind, understanding the location of where you want to do this project, what's the highest point of your project? I'm just thinking you have the FAA height limitations for buildings.
Yes, we're very well aware of the limitations. I think it's 150 feet is the kind of limitation, which is part of the reason why you need so much land for kind of what we're envisioning. If we didn't have the limitations, we could do this in a much smaller kind of footprint, if you will.
Gotcha. All right. Folks, you're welcome to chime in with any questions that you may have. And I want to welcome somebody that's kind of new to us. Amanda Allen is with HNTB, and they just recently joined the committee for DOLAS. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
Um, Questions, anybody? You can just chime in.
Yeah, I had a question. Thanks
Sure.
again for the intro. Hi, Samuel. Thanks for the presentation. That was really interesting. It's so like flashy and like amazing to see. And you might have been saying this at the end. It's like the curse of me multitasking in the morning, but is there an expected timeline for this development? And I know you mentioned meeting with MWA, which is given the president's new focus on Dulles Airport. Are you imagining that there'll be a lot of interaction with the federal government and the way that this might work together with any new development at the airport itself?
That's like we're pretty certain that we're going to have those conversations. So, I met recently with Trump's new appointee to the MWA board, but we're definitely going to have some coordination there because I would imagine that President Trump's going to have a lot of interest and certainly a perspective on what we're envisioning here. So, but yeah, so for sure. I mean, it's definitely, the way we look at it is like the more input, the better for this type of a project because it benefits everybody in the community long term. And that's, we're really less focused on who's providing input and more focused on, all right, because in 25 years, this should still be an iconic project. In 100 years, it should still be an iconic project.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just quickly mention, if you want to come to the February 26th luncheon, I do have it posted, the link posted up on the chat. Other questions?
Yeah, I'll ask a couple. Or okay, go ahead.
Oh no, Logan, go ahead. Yeah, you jump in.
Yeah.
Josh Ross here. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
go first. Yeah. Hi, Samuel. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Logan.
Couple questions. I'm probably more than we have time for to ask and go over here. But you mentioned that the money's largely coming from Abu Dhabi. There's billions of dollars committed. And then you also mentioned at the beginning that you view yourself as a quote fiduciary to the community and all that. So does this project have to pencil? Do you guys have pro formas? You guys need a certain rate of return, or is this going to be branded, sort of, the authority of Abu Dhabi, whatever, and there's sort of a goodwill mission, and whether it makes a little, loses a little, breaks even, it doesn't really matter because there's a non-monetary return that they're looking for here.
So it's a really good question. I mean, the short answer is that the capital that we're talking to and that has committed to this project is much more focused on iconic projects, particularly that kind of deepen the relationship with the United States. They obviously, the project does need to pencil, but this is not a project where they're going like, we need a 40% IRR, kind of thing. So this is much more of we've committed to investing in the U.S. Trump has gotten a lot of capital commitments from different parts of the world. We started these conversations before his tour, but I think there's a lot of, despite all of the noise around the world about what's happening in the U.S., and people can take a different perspective on President Trump's foreign policy approach, but regardless of of all the noise, there are still a lot of nations and allies around the world that believe in the U.S., believe in the long-term partnership with the U.S. and the long-term kind of being an ally. So that is more of, I think, the interest and the appetite of like the people we're talking to in Abu Dhabi, going like, this is this is a long-term iconic project, and this, we care deeply about our partnership in the U.S. and, we want to invest the capital.
Right. And this model hasn't been done before in the US. So I'm guessing you don't have a pro forma or you can base off of another model, right? Because I'm assuming, the economics are going to be different in other geographies outside the US, in the Middle East or Asia, I'm imagining. So this is going to be unique setup. It's not like you can just say this is part three. We're just, we did it twice over here. Now we did it a third time over here. You're going to have you do it for the first couple times here is what it sounds like.
This project is going to be unique in the United States. We have other projects that we're in the works on in the U.S. that are smaller scale, and those are more traditional investors. So there's a traditional kind of investment thesis and return analysis that's being done. But a project like this is a little bit different in terms of just given the scale and the uniqueness of the project. Also, keep in mind, and it'll be broken into phases, right? This isn't a project that's going back to Amanda's question, it's not a project that's going to be done in a year or 2 years. This is, minimum of a 10-year kind of development project over multiple phases. And so there will be certain phases will have to stand more economically than other phases, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, I didn't see any mention of office. You did use the word residential somewhere in there, but it wasn't clear to me. Are you envisioning actual housing, or was that just a reference to the hotel component?
Just the hotel component. No, not envisioning any housing or office at all. This is entirely focused on, there'll be office space for the, like the convention center has administrative office space to run kind of, but not like leased out office space. That is not the vision.
Okay. And I'm not putting you on the spot here, or not trying to, but in terms of any thoughts as to what a traffic study is going to look like, and you get so many users a day, I suppose you're going to have some percentage of that is going to be airport generated. Then you've got to have your people movers or whatever you're going to do to get people from the terminal over there. And then of course you're going to attract other people from outside the airport. And then, that's going to impact the roads and the parking and the more mundane stuff. So I don't know whether or not you've gotten into any of that level of analysis yet to get a sense on whether or not you're going to need any notable, road improvements or what have you in order to, mitigate the traffic impacts that your project as a demand generator would create.
There's definitely and there's definitely going to be road improvements and expansion. We're going to have to get access off the tollway. So there's a number of things that are going to have to happen on the traffic side to make a project like this feasible. And also, you don't want to bottleneck the entrance to the airport, with a bunch of convention traffic and things like that. So there's a number of things that are going to have to happen on the traffic side.
Yeah, understood. Okay, let me pass the baton on to Peter now.
Thanks,
Hey,
Doug.
Peter.
Yeah, I actually got most of the answer, which was a follow-up on Amanda's question around construction phasing and how long you had imagined that building something like this would take. And then, it being a first case, sort of just how that phasing would look. I guess you build all the buildings and then you go and build the dome after all the dust is settled, and at which point does it get enclosed, and how long does that take?
Yeah, so it would happen as we're building, so that it's not just one. You don't think about it as one like big dome over the top. The dome will have a lot of different characteristics and will attach at different points to the different buildings underneath. So very, very different probably than what you're envisioning or what you've seen. So that the dome and everything will happen in phases, but most likely the phasing would work where you start kind of on the lakeside with bringing in some of the hospitality, because that needs to be redone anyway. And so you would start, that's where you would start, and then you'd simultaneously be consolidating a lot of the parking and the rental car center and things like that. So those 3 things need to happen first. You need to figure out where the rental car center is going, where parking is going, and getting all that consolidated and done as kind of phase 1, while at the same time starting the first hospitality components. And then once those are done, then you can really start going in, big scale on some of the other components.
Yeah, my understanding of the lake is that it's a stormwater management system, so there might need to be some serious engineering attached to
For sure. Absolutely.
how that works. But
For sure.
This is my last question. I wasn't really clear about what is the Star of the Sky attraction.
The Star of the Sky attraction is so that'll be one component of this project, but that is also kind of a standalone concept that we are developing around the U.S., where it is a venue, call it, on average, it's a smaller scale venue, call it 300 to 500,000 square feet, where you have a number of different entertainment options, and then you have food and beverage, brewery, spa. It's kind of a full, kind of all-inclusive attraction venue with content. Even though it's a bunch of entertainment, bowling and arcades and VR and the go-kart racing, you still have a content component to that attraction.
Thank you.
Michael, did you have a question or two?
Maybe a comment and a question. This reminds me, even though this project is, I think, far more advanced and ambitious, but it reminds me a bit of when Milt Peterson, the late Milt Peterson, began talking about needing an exit off the Capitol Beltway to build a project along the river at Oxon Hill. And that project came to fruition. National Harbor brought MGM, Grand Hotel and Casino to that part of Maryland. And now they're talking about bringing a smaller version of Vegas's Sphere. So I have to say, it's a very bold and ambitious project, but it is exciting and something that I think Northern Virginia really, I think, deserves, particularly the airport and the visitors that it does see and could even attract with something like this. I think at the beginning, it might have been part of your intro for Samuel Scott. The use of the word sustainable project, and I'm sure there's so many different perspectives on sustainability. One word that I think comes to mind with sustainable projects now is resiliency, and I could see how this project could be built to be very resilient. Is there anything you could expand on along those lines, sustainability and resiliency?
So a couple things that I'll just put out there. We maybe three things. One, we spent a bunch of time and investment on the train system, how that's gonna work. So because we didn't want to have a bunch of high power and or emissions. The glass system is maybe the most that we've spent time and energy on. So the type of glass that we're using actually came out of the cell phone industry. It's now much more energy efficient than the traditional glass structure or systems that are in place on buildings today. And also lighter material and more kind of malleable and flexible material. So you don't have the issue with like rigidity, and especially with a lot of airline traffic in the area, that you want to make sure that the glass is going to be malleable. The other thing is there are now, I'm sure you've probably all heard of some of the technology where in Africa they have machines that are pulling water out of the air for people. So they're doing this now at a very commercial, industrial level as well. And in Virginia, with all the humidity, what are part of our plan and part of our whole HVAC system for this type of structure is, instead of just trying to dehumidify it, you're just going to pull that water out of the air, and that becomes part of the drinking water for the entire complex. So that's one thing that we're thinking about and will be integrated. And another thing, we have waste. So we've been an investor with a company out of Germany that has a wastewater system And, there's a lot more to go into this. I don't want anybody to freak out about it, but the wastewater treatment systems now, you don't actually have to go back into the grid with the wastewater. They can, through their filtration and their filtration system, we could actually self-contain all of the waste in the project, and without having to tap into any sort of wastewater system. So that there's a lot of new technology in the building world that is very cutting edge and really transformative, that we want to use where appropriate.
Thank you.
Michael, sounds like a good September meeting topic.
I think so. Yeah, I got four great possibilities: the glass structure, the train or the tram, air to H2O, and wastewater treatment. So that's great.
Samuel and Scott, I would like to step in and ask a question to touch on a little bit of the workforce planning. Has your team started modeling anything with the workforce required across construction, operations, hospitality?
We have a little bit. There's a lot more work to do on that, and especially given the labor shortage in Northern Virginia, there's a lot that we have to still kind of work through on that front. We're very well aware of that.
Are you planning on prioritizing any Northern Virginia-based certified small businesses for staffing or support services?
I mean, for sure. I mean, this is going to pull in a lot of employer demand, in the immediate vicinity, for sure. A lot of, I mean, I think, the way we look at it is like probably the biggest challenge is going to be, I think you hit it head on, is just the development piece of it. On an ongoing operating basis, it just brings more jobs to Northern Virginia and more demand for labor. And that piece we're, I guess, less concerned about. It's more the building side of it that will take some work and some thought.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? As I mentioned before, we have a hard stop at 9.
Yeah, I'll ask one more.
Other?
Yeah, sorry, Scott. Yeah, I'll ask one more.
Okay, Logan.
Thoughts on power generation for this and what the power need is going to be? Are you guys going to, because you were talking 10 years out, are you talking small modular reactors and try and keep it 100% clean and nuclear? Is that on brand? Or are you going to try to just do traditional grid? You don't think it'll be a particular strain to the system? I don't know, thoughts on power generation and consumption.
It's another thing, I guess, to add to Michael, to your question. So we have a number of ideas on the power side. We will have to add to the grid is most likely, but we'll definitely be integrating solar throughout a huge component of the project. And we'll see kind of, by the time that we get there, if there is the right kind of microgrid kind of nuclear kind of component that we can do. That's been my dream for a long time. If we can, can we start cutting down power lines, would be a huge win for a lot of communities if we can ever figure out the micro power systems. But
yeah, well, I've got a friend in that space, and I know they're talking to some large developments. As if it's large enough, it could justify its own small modular reactor.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to data centers and things like that, obviously.
Right.
All right. Any last questions? Very good. Well, Samuel, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us this morning and lay out your plans, vision for your project at Dulles Airport. It's very intriguing, very exciting, and wish you all the luck moving forward with the project.
Thank you all for having me.
Pleasure. Again, just a reminder about the February 26th luncheon, and please join us if you haven't already registered. This presentation will be posted on the CFD YouTube channel in probably a day or two. And we'll send a link out in the coming Monday's newsletter for you all to access. With that, thank you everybody for joining me this morning and participating in this presentation by Samuel. And again, thank you, Samuel. And hope to talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Anita.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.